Good morning, T. It's Maureen.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries. We're here. That's what we're here for.
Excited. Thanks for working it out. Hey, your room is a raffle prize winner, so we're going to come on at the 26-minute mark and announce a raffle winner, okay?
Okay, so I got 26 minutes, right?
I got 26 minutes. So thanks so much, T. We appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Merry Christmas, everyone.
All right. And we are on. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's doing good. I am T from Pilates Pro Maintenance, and we basically specialize on moving, installing, and maintaining Pilates equipment, more specifically Gratz equipment. We're professionalized with the Gratz brand, and I'm not going to kill too much of your time because we have a very short time to cover a lot of material. All right, so today we are doing the Gratz Reformer. Let me just go through a couple of things you might need before you even get started, which is the tools. I actually have some set up right next to me, and I'm just gonna run through them quickly so you guys can just have them in hand before you get started with any service. Of course, you're gonna need a socket wrench, number 13 or 1/2, which is to take off the main wheels of the carriage. And I will go through what the main wheels are and what the side wheels are and the back wheels in a second. If you don't have one available, 2 wrenches will also work, same numbers, 1/2 or 13. But if you are using only 2 wrenches, I suggest you try to get one with that's automatic, basically that it just cranks itself back and forth. It'll save you a lot of time and worries when you're trying to move quickly and efficiently throughout the reformer. You will need a set of Allen keys, but if you don't have a set of Allen keys, the specific one you are going to need is 532. And it doesn't have to look like this one. This is just the one I have now, but you could also have a 532 that's just a regular Allen key. And this is gonna be for the side wheels. And again, I will explain what wheels those are in a second. You are going to need white lithium grease. This one is very important because this is the grease that goes between the axle screw and the wheels of the Gratz equipment. Do not use any other kind of grease or oil or any other lubricant that you may think is efficient. I'm just gonna put it up here in case everyone wants to get the actual name of it. The brand doesn't really matter as long as it's white lithium grease. You will need a screwdriver. Make sure you have a flathead. Right here I have one that basically converts onto both sides, and in each side I have the larger number 4 and then number 2. Because different screws require different Phillips head as well as the flathead. You're going to use the tiny one, for example, the hinges on the headrest, as opposed to the screws that hold down the shoulder blocks. They're completely different, and if you use the wrong head, you're risking to strip the screw. And having the right tools is very important, guys. You don't want to strip screws, nuts, bolts. Once these things strip, they're really hard to take off, and you could possibly have equipment out of service if you can't put it back, of course. Other things I keep handy always are some Q-tips, which you're going to use to get inside the wheel and clean off all the old grease and get into the nook and cranny of the wheel. I actually have one off right now for the sake of time. So these are the 4 main wheels that are underneath the carriage. I'm going to flip this carriage over in a second, and you'll see how. And what I use the Q-tip for is to get inside the wheel, and some wheels will have like an extra crease right here, or right by the central one, where you will get the Q-tip inside and get all the old grease out of, as well as inside the wheel. And you'll just make, oh, this is actually a good example. This is a wheel I took off a reformer we have in the shop. And this is basically how the grease looks after it's been used. It's really dark, it gets nasty. And this is white lithium grease that turns black eventually with the bleeding of the blackness of the wheel and hair and debris that gets inside as we use the equipment. While we have this in hand, this would be a good time to point out to keep a garbage bag close because it gets messy really quick. This big part of this service is to stay organized. The main reason why each one of these steps are very important to keep in sequence is because if you're servicing one reformer or one wheel, it doesn't matter as much. But once we're doing more than one reformer, or even more than one wheel in one reformer, it can get messy really quick. Main part is you want to keep the grease where the grease goes. you don't want any grease on your vinyl. Some colors are more forgiving than others, but regardless, you don't need any grease where it doesn't belong, not on the frame, not on the foot bar, not on anything. A pair of gloves is very handy also for this maintenance because again, you're cleaning off old black grease and trying to keep everything nice and neat. And again, sorry if I'm going too fast. Good thing this thing is being recorded, but I'm trying to cover as much material as possible so you guys can get as much out of this as possible before it ends. Okay, so screwdriver, wrenches. Here's another example of the big Phillips head, kind of like for the shoulder blocks. There are bigger screws than the ones that are, for example, behind the headrest. Those are very tiny Phillips head screws, and you will need a different type of screwdriver. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to back up the camera a little bit. I'm going to show you how to turn this reformer over, which is also an important part you want to keep in mind, not only when you're doing just one reformer, but when you're doing many. This will help you move faster through your service, and not only faster, but you want to stay safe, right? Amongst everything, besides messing up the equipment, we definitely don't want you getting hurt trying to flip this carriage over or maintenance your equipment. So we've developed a method. Since we service so many reformers per day, there has to be an exact method as to how to turn them over. So they all look uniform and they all look the same and you don't lose track of exactly what you're doing. And I'll tell you verbally kind of like what that means. First of all, it means that you're going to be in an off stance position when you are lifting up the carriage and turning it over. I'll show you how I put one foot inside the frame and one foot outside, and that's going to keep a good balance in case you lose it, in case you just can't carry the weight of the carriage. Another thing I did quickly to save time here is I already have the wheel out, and I'm going to show you some of the screws and components that are underneath the carriage before I even go under there, just so you can have an idea. So this is the axle screw that goes through the main wheels, right? So the ways these wheels spin is that they're spinning on this screw, and that is the axle for it, right? And all of the wheels on the Grots Reformer function the same way. There are no wheel bearings. It's an actual screw, and the lubricant, which is the white lithium grease, dries up eventually through use. And the longer you haven't serviced your reformer, the rattlier it gets. It gets really rattly. You'll start hearing like clinks, and some people call it like it's sticking for the side wheels. Sometimes when you're doing a one-sided exercise or one spring exercise, like pull straps, or if you're doing your hamstring curls with one spring, you'll notice that the reformer doesn't want to come all the way back in, or it sticks, or it stays on one side, or things like that. That's when you force the reformer over to one side, and that's when you know it's time for service. Not only then, but you can also spin the wheel, and you'll hear the rattling. Once you turn your carriage over, you can literally just spin the wheel. You'll hear how rattly it gets, and that's just the dryness between the screw and the wheel that has happened, right? So this is the screw, this is the wheel. However, there are two washers that come with the main wheels, and they look like this. They are white nylon washers. They look like plastic, made of nylon, and they're made to lubricate the wheel. They're on each side. I'm sorry, not to lubricate, to protect the wheel. And there's one on each side of the wheel, and the screw will go in between. However, putting this all together under the carriage is a lot harder than what I'm doing when it's off, which is why I took it off to show you guys in the first place. The reason why is because there's a caster, right? A metal caster that the wheel is going to fall in between, and you want to keep the washers where they go and the grease where it's going to be. That's the main wheels, and I'll show you where those main wheels are. The side wheels, which are on the side of the reformer, I'll turn this one over in a second, have a different type of screw. It's an Allen key screw, which is the 532 Allen key, which I just showed you guys. And these wheels have two different washers. They would have a kind of a curvy washer. You'll notice once I take it off, and once, if you ever do your service, let's see if I can give you guys a good zoom. It's a curvy washer, so it's not flat. And if you were to turn it upside down, it'll look like that. And one main thing to keep in mind, and again, I will run through this again in a few once I'm turning it over, is that the way the washer goes into the screw is that the two curves go up towards the head of the screw. So basically, when you have it on, it will look something, I don't know if you guys will be able to see completely, but it will look something like this, right? So it will look like a happy face. some call it the cowboy hat or whatever makes sense to you, right? But definitely facing up. And if you ever have any troubles, look back at the recording and notice that it will always go towards the head. The function of this washer is also to keep the screw head from damaging the wheel. Since once you turn the carriage back over, the screw will be upside down and the wheel will be brought down by gravity towards the head. Without this washer, the wheel will be completely on the head of the screw, which will damage the wheel longer and it won't function the same. So all the washers are very important, as small as they are, for the function of the reformer. Let's turn the reformer over real quick and show you what I meant. Another main part of all this is to stay uniform. If you're just doing one reformer, even in one reformer, you will notice that staying uniform, staying in the same sequence is going to help you not lose a washer, not lose a screw, or not forget which wheel you were servicing at the time that you either got interrupted by something, or even as you keep going, you don't want to forget where you were. And even if you forget with the system, you'll be able to just like pick up right back where you left off at. So stay uniform. And what I mean by that is, if I'm doing 4 reformers and I am about to turn over this reformer, what I will do is I will turn them all over at the beginning. So while my hands are clean, I'm grabbing all this vinyl and I'm touching all the things where I don't want grease on, and I'm going to turn all the reformers over. So once my hands start getting dirty and I'm dealing with screws and grease, then that's all I'm doing. I'm going to clean all the screws of all the reformers at the same time. So once I clean my hands, I could do other things with clean hands or not clean hands. Everything, just keep it together in one bundle of activities, right? So hopefully you guys can hear me okay as I back up. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Nice. All right. So first, of course, we're going to remove the springs. We're going to take off the carriage from the frame. 4 springs are off. The handles, what I will do is remove the handles completely. I'll just take the handles off from the reformer. And we'll go back to the handles in a second. Another thing you will do is bring the straps from behind the back wheels. So I'm going to just pull the straps from behind the back wheels. And there's a big reason for that. Right? So the straps are really just hanging out, right? So now you have just the carriage with nothing attached, the springs are off, and the straps are off. Reason why I suggest take the straps off from behind the back wheel is because they could be a tripping hazard when you're turning this thing over also. Just keep as much as you can out of your way, because this can get messy really quick. Sorry, we have a plane passing by. So here's the off stands that I was talking about when you're turning it over, right? First thing you're going to do to turn it over is flip the carriage upright. Do not pass the 90-degree angle with the carriage and the frame. The vinyl can touch the track if you go past that angle. So you want to keep it at 90 and no more than that. The offset is 1 foot inside the frame, 1 foot outside of the frame. If both of your feet are inside the frame and you lift this thing up and it gets really heavy and you lose balance, guess what? You're stuck inside the frame, you might trip, you're falling out of the frame with a really heavy carriage in your hand. Not a good deal. Same thing when you're outside of the frame completely. You have both feet out, you lose balance trying to get it back where it was. Now you're like over the frame, you have a really heavy piece of equipment, big tripping hazard. So 1 foot in, 1 foot out, one hand on the ball that holds the springs, right? And the other hand on the frame. The garage reformer has a metal frame that goes all the way around the carriage. You will grab onto the metal frame, the metal only, none of the vinyl. You lift it up, turn it, and you're going to place the side away from the straps down first. So you can switch hands the way I did and get the straps out of the way, right? Get the straps from under the reformer. Sometimes the straps are dirty. Sometimes the straps already have like a black tint on it as you will use it. And if you leave it under the carriage, they can damage the vinyl also. Another thing is, make sure that the shoulder blocks are always on the exterior of the frame. Do not let those shoulder blocks touch the track. Again, the track is very greasy and very from the wheels rolling on it. And if the shoulder blocks touch the track, you'll have really stuck on grease onto the shoulder blocks, which you want to avoid. So, notice how I'm out of breath already and sweating from turning one carriage over. When you're about to do 5 reformers at the same time, 6, 7 reformers, you want to stay uniform. You're gonna get tired. This is an exhausting thing, especially as you do a lot of it. It's gonna take approximately like 2 hours to serve as an entire reformer, to do all the wheels of it, if you are going to do all the wheels. It'll take about 1 hour if you were doing just 4 wheels, which is what people usually break it down into pieces. They'll do the 4 main wheels one time, and they'll do the 4 side wheels in another time. So I'm just gonna bring you closer now to the working station. I feel like I'm trying to break a record as to how fast can I explain this. All right, so thank God I found this wheelie cart. All right. Again, super uniform. So if I turned over this reformer, they're all turned over. As I turn them over, I'm making sure I take a visual inspection. I'm looking at the springs. I'm making sure there's no kinks or spaces in between the springs. This one off. These springs are good, but what you would notice is a gap or an inconsistency in the colors of the spring, and that would tell you that the spring is bad. That's just a visual inspection. You won't need much rocket science to figure that one out. While I have the spring off, if you ever have to install new springs, the way you install the new springs is you put them in the way I like to explain it is put it in the way that it doesn't make sense. You put it away from where they go. So all the springs are in that direction. So I install the facing the other way, and then you just flip it and turn it over. The reason for that is because once you turn the reformer over, gravity is going to keep the hooks onto that spring bar, right? And if I did it the other way, which the other way just kind of makes sense. You feel like you just want to put it in, and it's in, right? But when you turn the reformer over, the gravity is just going to pull it right back out, and all your springs are going to fall on the floor. Okay, so always the opposite way. You just turn it over, turn it in there. All right. And once you've had all your reformers turned over, you're ready to start setting them all up. Again, stay uniform. So right now I got these pretty little towels, but you don't have to use pretty little towels. I'm just doing this because it's one reformer and I'm just basically showing you guys. But cover your reformer, set up your working station. You're going to be taking off a lot of little wheels, a lot of washers. So think about it. There's 2 washers per each wheel, at least for the main wheels and for the side wheels. So let's just say we're doing just the main wheels. That's already 2, 4, 6, 8 washers. And then if I'm doing 2 reformers, that's 16 washers and 4 wheels. This can get very extensive very quickly. You'll have a lot of washers all over the place and a lot of little screws. Keep them all together. Keep all the little washers together. Keep all the screws together. It's going to help you not lose any of them. It's going to help you see that if you missed one, you'll see it right away because it's right next to each other. Instead of like, I'll put one here and then I'll put one over there and there's a screw here and my screwdriver's all over the place. You know, just stay organized and stay uniform with everything. All right, so covering the reformer, you've turned them all over, you've covered them all, and now it's time to bring your tools out and you're gonna get started with the maintenance. Let me go get those tools again. All right, so removing the main wheels. What are the main wheels? The main wheels would be the 4 wheels that the carriage has on the track, right? So the 4 wheels that are on these metal casters, which are the main wheels that are constantly in use when using the reformer. These wheels will work more than the rest of them. They will need more service than the rest of them because they're constantly being used no matter what exercise you're doing or what you're doing on the reformer. The minute you put weight on the reformer, these wheels are at work. To remove them, I have my favorite set of tools is the wrench and the socket wrench together. They just make it so much easier, right? The wrench is going to go in the interior of the wheel. You see if you get a closer look there. All right, so I have the interior of the wheel here. Let's give you guys a better angle so you know what I mean. So sorry about that. All right, I'll show you in a second. So the reason why I want it in the interior is because the socket wrench actually doesn't even fit back there. So you'll try to get it on the nut, and the caster that hold the eye hooks that have the straps attached to them is not gonna let you put anything else other than a wrench back there, a flat wrench. The flatness is what makes it just like slip right in there. You grab the nut, and you won't even be able to spin it because of that caster. So then that's when the other tool, the other wrench you have, or the socket wrench, is going to come on the exterior, and you're going to remove it. I'm going to remove this one quickly just to show you guys. And I picked a reformer that has not been serviced in a while, so we can actually see what it looks like when you have a wheel that has not been serviced, right? All right, so here we'll go back to staying uniform. If I have these tools in my hand and I just loosen that wheel, I'm not going to put these tools down to take this wheel off and get my hands all greasy, to take off these little washers, then pick up my tools again and get them all greasy, and then go to the next wheel and just keep doing that. You'll kill so much time just picking up the tools and putting them down, as opposed to just loosen all the wheels you can while you have them in your hand. Just loosen them all up. Not only on this reformer, but all the reformers. You're going to go around and just loosen all the wheels that you're going to work on. You're still not taking off the nuts. You're still not taking off the washers or anything. Just loosening everything. So once you put these down, you're done with them, and until you're back to putting it all back together. Let's assume that I just loosen all the wheels to all my reformers, and that's when I'm putting these tools down, right? If I were going to be doing the side wheels, which I'm going to take one off also. I'm using the Allen key. And again, I'm going to loosen all the wheels to all the reformers at the same time because my hands are still clean, the tools are still clean, and it's just good to stay uniform and know what you're doing. When you're taking off the side wheel, you will hear a click. You did not break the wheel, you did not break the screw. That's the lock mechanism that the screw uses to lock the wheel into place. So you'll hear it. Hopefully you can hear it when I take it off. Let's see. So this is just like a click. Now tighten it again and take it off again to see if that works. It's gonna click every time. Every time you tighten the wheel and you try to take it off, it's going to make this click. It could be a little startling. You're like, okay, why did it click? Did I break something? It's just how it works, okay? We're taking off all the Allen screws to all the side wheels that we're gonna service. And again, I will leave the wheel there. If I'm going to go take off the next wheel and the next wheel and the next wheel, I'll take them all off and I'll just have them uniform right next to each other. Also, the way I would put them on top of the reformer, it's going to be very neat. You keep all four wheels next to each other or side wheels next to each other. Stay organized, guys. Trust me. You do not want to lose a nut, a bolt, and have a whole reformer out of service because you're missing a nut or because you're missing a screw or washer. It's not worth it. I'm just gonna take off this side wheel. I don't know if you guys can see. I'm gonna take off, the main wheel. As I take off the main wheel and pull the axle screw out, remember the two washers that I told you that are next to the wheel, two white nylon washers. I'm just gonna grab one again. These guys, they might fall. Chances are they are gonna fall when you pull out the wheel. They might fall in between the caster. They might fall on the floor. Just be wary of where they go. And as soon as you take the wheel off, find them and put them in a nice place so you won't go later like, hey, did I take them off? Did I find them? Were they there? Were they missing? Who knows? Let's avoid confusion. So a few things can happen to them. They can fall or they can get stuck on the wheel, kind of like this one is. After a long time of service, they just stick onto the wheel. Remember that white guy I just showed you? Like what color they get, right? So this is what we're here to clean. Remember that nice shiny screw I showed you guys before? This is how it gets over time. And this is not even a really bad one. We've turned reformers over where you can no longer see the silver part. I've turned reformers over when you try to clean this grease, it's just, you're better off replacing it sometimes. Or using degreaser, which is also another method we use. And I'll run through that in a little bit later. But that's if you haven't had service in a really long time and you feel like you just cannot get this grease off, then you might have to use some degreaser carefully. You don't want degreaser on anything. You don't want degreaser on vinyl, on the frame. It's going to discolor it. It's strong. It's degreasing, right? So you don't want it on anything that has a finish on it. Notice that I already have grease in my hands. This is the dirty part, right? This is where you get it messy. This is where you want your gloves on or something like that. And once you're doing this, then just keep doing this. Keep cleaning screws, keep cleaning washers, stay on this part. Don't go back to putting these down, grabbing my tools, to take off another one, to put these down, to getting greasy again. You know, it's a mess. So I'm immediately going to find my two washers, which is one is stuck on the wheel, the way I showed you guys. And the other one is actually stuck on the caster. Let me see if I can show you that. It is stuck right there, and I'm just gonna pull it out. They stay stuck on the caster sometimes, they fall, or they stay stuck on the wheels. All right. I'm going to remove the side wheel because this is the time where I'm just removing wheels. I'm removing all my main wheels. I'm now removing all my side wheels. And this is before I move on to the other carriage too. You don't want to remove the 4 main wheels, go to the next carriage, remove 4 main wheels, then come back to this carriage just to remove 4 side wheels. You're doing wheel removing anyway, right? Hands are greasy, it's getting dirty anyway. For the side wheels, by the way, these are the side wheels. There are 4 wheels that sit on black casters, these little black squares that are on the side of the reformers. And they basically keep the side of the frame of the carriage from hitting the frame of the actual reformer. They protect the frame on frame action, especially when you're doing one-sided exercise and you're pulling with one spring, the reformer is going to tilt a little bit to one side, and what keeps it from scratching are these side wheels. So if you hear any scratching or staking or the unevenness on the carriage to frame proportion, is due to these wheels. This is what's responsible for keeping everything aligned. I took them off, assuming I'm taking them all off. Again, be careful with the washers when you take them off. Just make sure, even before you take them off, it's good to notice if they're there, right? Because if they're missing completely, then this is a good thing to take note of. I need a washer. I need to order a washer. I need to replace it. It's broken, it fell. I'm just gonna put the wheel upright so the washers can stay on. I got the screw off. Here's that first washer I showed you guys earlier, the little cowboy hat, happy face washer. It's really greasy.
Hi, T, can we break in for 1 second?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, we wanted to announce that Melissa Sullivan is the winner of a Gratz hat, t-shirt, and coffee mug. Thank you, Melissa Sullivan.
Congratulations, Melissa.
Please contact us in the direct messages of Instagram with your address, okay? Thank you so much. Thanks, T. Merry Christmas. Thanks, everyone.
No worries.
See ya.
All right. So removing the washers again to the side wheels. Remember, there's a second washer, which is a metal washer. And this one goes flat against the wheel. I'll show you how to put them all back on in order when I'm putting everything back. All right. So the way I told you guys earlier, I would have all my 4 side wheels right here next to each other. I would have my main wheels all next to each other. All my screws would be right next to each other. Washers, nuts, especially the nuts. Don't underestimate how easy those can get lost. And let's just assume everything is off for now, and I'm ready to start doing the service of the reformer. Another thing we keep local all the time, besides the Q-tips, you're just going to need some paper towels. But what we do is, again, we do so many reformers, and we try to find the most eco-friendly way to do this. And we realize we're wasting a lot of paper towels by using them as a whole and everything. Don't forget that trash bag. The trash bag is going to be very useful. You just want to run through material like crazy. Just keep it close. I usually put it inside the frame with me. I'm actually sitting on the frame of the reformer now as I service. And we're going to start the cleaning part. The cleaning of the grease consists of first cleaning the exterior of the wheel, right? You're going to clean all the old grease that's on the exterior of the wheel. You're going to find hair and all kinds of stuff. And actually, this wheel is very different from the one I showed you earlier. This is the one I wanted to, this is the little slit that I was talking about, which is this little part here, that you want to clean all the grease that gets in there to an excess. And you'll see it in a good example on this one. See, it gets really black, it gets really nasty. You don't want this stuff all over. This actually starts getting onto the track, and that's the stuff that you see on the track. That's why it gets bumpy, this solidifies, and you won't have the same ride. Do not put a blade to the wheel. The wheel is very sensitive to blade. You'll just be chipping little parts of it off, and you'll just need a new wheel at the end of it. If the wheel is damaged, you will notice it right away. It cracks along towards the exterior. Like you'll see like little cracks heading out, or you'll see little chunks missing, which is due to debris on the track or lack of maintenance for a really long time. And that's basically what we're trying to prevent here. Do not recycle your Q-tips, and do not be scared to use a lot of them. Be generous. Just grab a Q-tip, use it. It's dirty. Use the other side. It's dirty. That's what the trash bag is for. Get rid of it. And you're going to do that a lot. That's actually what you're doing for this whole time, is just cleaning the outside of that thing. Then you're going to get inside the actual wheel, and you're going to clean all the old grease off. This one is also not that bad. You can always look down the shaft of the wheel and see how much it gets in, right? So it's always going to be really black, really dirty in there. Just keep cleaning the inside until it comes out clean. There's gonna be a point where your Q-tip is actually gonna come out white. If it takes so long that you just keep doing it, and it just keeps coming out dirty, look inside. Chances are there's like a solidified little piece of grease, and that's the little piece of grease that just keeps on, that you're just taking little pieces of it once at a time. But once you detect it, you can go with a Q-tip again and just like take it off, like physically off from the inside of the wheel, and it will be a lot faster. Because sometimes you're not even looking inside, you're just like sticking it inside there, and every time you bring it out, it's dirty. And you just keep doing that, and it's dirty, and you're like, it's been 20 minutes and I'm still on the first wheel. So just look inside, it's gonna save you some time. This wheel is a wheel that I would use a little degreaser on. I'm not going to do it now for the sake of time, but this is the kind of wheel. Let me see if I can show you. See that stuff that's solidified right there, right? That's just grease. It's just grease that over a long period of time, it gets hard, and instead of blading it off or anything like that, you're just going to take some degreaser and spray it onto the rag or onto the towel that you're using, and then try to clean it off here. Believe it or not, another hack that I have for that part is do not use metal, do not use blade. What you can use is the nylon washer itself is able to take off that grease. It's hard enough to take it off, but not hard enough to damage the wheel. So use something like that to take off. That's in a rare case where you just like can't get the stuff off, the greaser's not working, and you want to get that stuff off so it can ride smoothly. That's a good hack for that. So we're cleaning the inside of the wheel. Trash goes in the trash bag every time. Clean the outside. This one inside is actually pretty good already. I'm like one Q-tip away from being done with this one. I might as well do it so you guys can see that it actually does come out white eventually. All right, so it's not as bad as when we first started. So that's what you want. Just get all that black stuff off, because you're going to add new grease, and you don't want the old grease mixing with the new grease. It's just counterproductive. Before the big announcement, what I was saying is, we were looking for eco-friendly and efficient way to keep cleaning reformers without spending as much paper towels. What I do is I kind of like pre-cut them before I even start. So I have these little square pieces of paper towels, always pre-cut. The washer fits like right in the center of it, and I can just like fold it, clean the washer. Once I'm done with it, I get rid of the little paper towel. And like that, I'm not trying to recycle this large piece of paper towel and risking getting grease all over the place again, because half of the towel has grease, half is not, and you're trying to be efficient as well, I'm sure. This is the time I would use gloves, by the way. For the sake of time, I'm doing the sacrifice. I'll do my nails later. All right, so washer cleaning time. You're going to clean all your washers, the 2 nylon washers that were on the side of the main wheel. And sometimes I even Q-tip the inside of the washer as well. There's a chance you might not get the washer completely back to white, the where it was. Especially if service hasn't been done in a long time, you won't get it completely back to white. But just clean off all the grease and make sure it's a smooth wipe, meaning that when you're wiping it, the paper towel is not like breaking onto it because it's so sticky. Then you still need to degrease them. You could also get a small little cup, put some degreaser on it, and just dump all the washers in it, and just let it soften off a little bit, and then you can wipe them down. If it comes to that, chances are, unless you're running a teacher training program, or unless the reformer hasn't been serviced in like 10 or 15 years, then you should be able to just take it off. Same thing with the small little happy face washer. Just put it in between, clean it well. I don't know if you can see, but these things do get really greasy, really dirty. You just want to get all that stuff off. Throw it away. The paper towel. All right, so assuming I cleaned all 16 washers, right? If I 16, 32 washers, assuming that I'm doing just the main wheels. 64 washers if I'm doing all the wheels here, like just on the carriage, will be like 64. So it's a lot of washers if you're doing all your reformers. I'm not even considering the back wheels yet. That are back here where the straps go. Those back wheels also have 2 little washers that are next to them that are going to multiply your job even more. The back wheels need a lot less service than the main wheels or the side wheels. So the ones that will always need service is every couple of months, your main wheels, then the side wheels, maybe twice as long as that, but since you already have the reformer turned over, you might as well do the side wheels. And maybe once a year, depending on usage, the back wheels. Those rarely get worn out, but once a year is fine, because even if you're not using the equipment, kind of like even if your car is parked, you still have to change the oil when you start using it. And just like any moving part or any mechanical equipment, the grease dries up and it just has to be changed. This is literally the oil change of your reformer, equivalent to the car. Just wiping down the screws. The screws are going to have a lot of caked on stuff depending on the time that has been done, but you want it to be really smooth. This is literally what the wheel is spinning on. This is the smoothness you feel on the reformer is the smoothness that happens between the axle screw and the wheel. So again, you should be able to see all the silver part of the screw and take off any excess grease, right? Just a shiny screw. Same thing with the side wheel screw, the one with the Allen key. That one you're just going to clean. And you will find these things in different conditions, depending on your reformer, depending on usage. I've turned some reformers over that I can't even get the Allen key inside that head screw because it's filled with grease and debris. So even before I take them off, this is a rare case again, but it might happen. You know, I would literally put the Q-tip inside the head of the screw and would take off as much grease as you can before you get your tools so dirty that now you're spreading grease around the studio instead of cleaning it. All right, and the nut. There you go. It's nice to have them pre-cut because I can just get rid of them and grab another one quickly without spending so much time ripping out of one roll of paper towels or worrying about what I'm getting into the greases. I did all those screws. I did the front main wheels. The side wheels will never really have that crease. But if they do, for any reason, the wheels are outsourced. They're not made by Grox. So if the manufacturer made them differently and they do have a groove, just make sure you clean that groove too. Anything on it that may, let me just pick that right back up to show you. They do get greasy. They are, this reformer was done, we bought this reformer from someone who had not serviced it in 5 years. So, and we just got it. So this is actually a great opportunity for it. I'm done with the exterior of the wheel. I'm going to repeat the same thing I did to the main wheels. Just take off all that black stuff that's inside the wheel. And just do a little time check. All right. All right. So all the wheels are clean, all the washers are clean. You did this to all of the wheels out of all of the reformers, and you're ready to start putting things back. This part is also really tricky, and it's something to keep in mind that you want to keep the right sequence for. And just grab the lithium grease. Have one that's open already. The white lithium grease may come in different containers. We like to use these tubes because they're like easy to apply the grease onto the washers on the wheels. Mainly because it has a little nozzle. One part I forgot to show you have to clean also. The casters that the wheels are actually on, the little black pad, the little black station that the wheel is on, you want to wipe that down. It's going to have grease also. Not much, but it's going to have some. And the casters that the main wheels are on, which are these metal things, you also want to clean those. They're going to get dirty. And before you add new grease, you just want to get all that black stuff out of the way. Again, don't put a blade to it. If it comes to the point where it is so hard, remember that you can take it off with one of the nylon washers or just the greaser. Try not to put anything that scratches or damages the equipment onto the equipment. I'm just gonna take off this white washer that was not part of the service. I'm gonna take it away so it doesn't even confuse me as to putting things back. Because we're already dealing with 64 washers. If I bring anything from the outside into this, it's just gonna get confusing. All right, putting everything back. Now we're gonna start adding grease. Again, assuming I cleaned all the washers, all the casters, all the wheels, everything's clean. Adding grease back onto the axle screw. So this is the reason why I like using this type of white lithium grease, because it's just easy to basically squeeze and apply as needed throughout the shaft of the screw. Important, very, very important. Don't make a big lump of grease like this, please. You're about to slide this screw right back to where it was, and as you put it back in, all the grease is just gonna stay in the washer, and you will have to do it again. That's one of the parts that sucks the most. If you don't do this properly, you will literally just have to take it off again and do everything I just did again. And 2 hours is a long time to repeat over and over, depending on the amount of reformers you have too. So if you just spend 4 or 5 hours doing this, then you turn your reformers over and you see that they're worse than before you service them. And it's just very unfortunate, very inconvenient. To avoid that, keep it really flat. So what I do is like I flatten out the grease as much as possible, right? So it can stay flat and against the screw, and I do it throughout the whole screw. You do not add grease to the threaded part of the screw. It does not need any grease. and the head of the screw does not need any grease. It's just that flat part that the wheel is spinning on. Back to the uniform concept. If I'm done cleaning all the grease, right, this is a good moment for you to either wash your hands or take off those gloves that you were using and get maybe a new pair of gloves, or maybe it's time for no gloves because now you're going to add grease and you want to be very precise with it. And again, back to the uniform part. If I'm adding grease and I have this in my hand, guess what I'm doing? I'm adding grease to everything. I'm not going to let this go until I'm done with it. Putting this down and putting it back up, you're going to lose it, and you're going to leave it open and it's going to drip on something. And it just increases the amount, it increases the chances of you putting grease where it doesn't belong. All right, grease on the main axle screw. You will put it down on your station. Grease on the, oh, not this one yet. Let's just do the main wheel for a second. The main wheel, I greased up the axle screw. Now what I'm going to do is apply grease to the actual washers. I'm just going to do one dot on each side. And the reasoning for that is because it just acts like lubricant and glue at the same time. So you're just going to stick it onto the side of the wheel and it will actually just stay, right? So you just want it to stay there. So you'll be able to slide the wheel, put the wheel back in between the caster. And this is where we're gonna test your pulse to see if you're all shaky, because you're gonna need to be steady to put that wheel back in there. If not, the caster is gonna knock off the washer. It's just gonna fall. Again, very inconvenient. So, both washers. I would not do it in this manner. I'm just doing this for the sake of teaching, guys. I would not put that grease down to just put this one wheel back. But I do want you to get as much as you can out of this, right? So both of my washers are on the wheel. They're both one on each side, held on by a little grease. The screw has all the grease in it. Now, the hard part is putting it all back together because, like I said, you kind of need a steady pulse to keep everything steady. I'm just going to slide the wheel back in between. The two washers are still on, and then the screw is going to go in between everything. However, do not just push the screw in between, because then all the grease you put in the screw is going to come out. Put the threaded part of the screw in and act like the whole thing is threaded. Just spin it. Spin it as you put it in. The spinning is going to cause the lubrication to just go into the wheel instead of it all staying outside here. And you can actually physically see all the grease staying outside if you don't spin the screw. Now, if you think that this is any easier for me because I do it all the time, you're mistaken. The washers still fall on me. They still fall. It takes a little patience. The exterior of the wheel, let me just grab the other wheel I had. Wheels have the size of the wheel and the information of the wheels printed on the wheel. And make sure that that information is always facing outward. So basically, if you were to look under the reformer, you can see the information of the wheel anytime you look at a wheel. It shouldn't be in the exterior where you cannot see it. All right. Uniform. If I put that wheel back, I'm putting all my wheels back. I'm not going to go get the nut, put it here to grab my tools and tighten just one wheel. I'm going to put all my wheels back, and when it's tightening time, I'll grab these tools, and then that's all I'm doing is tightening all my wheels up at the same time. All right, it's not tightening time yet. I'm just putting all my wheels back. Now, to put back the side wheel, you have to put the washers in first. This is to avoid, again, all the grease from coming off when you're putting it all back in. So if I were to put grease on this screw now, and then I put the washer back in, the washer is just going to slide along the shaft and take all the grease off. This is the one that I showed you guys earlier. This is the way it goes. It goes facing upward the whole time. First, put the as we call it, the little cowboy hat one in. That's the one that protects the head of the screw. And then you're going to put the metal one in, shiny part facing the washer, flat part facing the threaded part. Now you can add grease to these screws. So once you clean all your screws, put all the washers back because you're gonna have to anyway before you add grease. Same concept, keep the grease close to the screw. Don't pile it up in a little mountain. It's just gonna come off and you put the screw back in. And believe it or not, you can literally have a worse sound than when you started. If you take off all the grease and there's no grease now, instead of old grease, you took off all the grease and now it has no lubrication. Take your time and do it right. It is worth it. Again, I will never just put this down because I'm greasing everything up. And once I'm done with that little tube, I'll just cover it and I'll put it away. So I know I don't have a stick of grease laying anywhere, honestly. So I'm done with grease. I'm not using grease for like anything else at all. In the same concept as I described earlier with that caster, just spin the screw as you're putting it inside the wheel. It doesn't have to be on the caster just yet. Just spin the screw. As it goes in. That'll help you lubricate the inside of the wheel instead of all the grease just coming out. Some of it is gonna come out. It's always gonna come out. We wanna keep as less as you can of that grease from coming out that you put inside. Let's say you're having a lot of trouble putting the screw back in and the grease just keeps coming off, especially for the main wheels, which you need that whole balance act for. What I would suggest is before you even put it back, grab the wheel, the screw with the grease on it, and before you even put it back, just kind of like thread the screw inside the wheel and get the grease inside the wheel. And then you can just take it off. You know that there's grease inside the wheel, and when you're putting everything back, you don't have to worry so much about not having grease inside the wheel. All right. All screws are lubricated, everything's clean, everything's ready to go back to normal. Again, I did this to all my reformers, everything at the same time. You put it back, you can hand tighten it or just place it there. Because when it's time to grab the Allen key, then that's all you're doing with that. You're tightening all your screws and you're gonna do all that. So you don't really have to grab this key to tighten one wheel. But let's assume I did it all, and it's time to put all the wheels back. It's time to tighten them all back. I'm just gonna tighten this one back to how it was. Now you don't have to like break the Allen key trying to tighten it. It tightens, it locks. That's the whole little clicky thing that I showed you earlier. It's just gonna lock. Just make sure that give it a nice tug. Notice I'm not like pulling on it excessively. And a way to tell if you did a good job, if it's done well or not, it's just you spin the wheel and it's not going to make any noise at all. It shouldn't make like any noise. The only little click you hear is the gap because the wheel moves up and down a little bit because of that little cowboy washer. It gives it a little spring action, right? But it shouldn't make any noise at all, especially with the main wheels. You will spin it and it will just be silent. If you spin it and you hear a rattly or a lot of sounds, then that means that there's not enough lubrication. Time to tighten everything up. You tighten all your wheels, tighten all the side wheels. Again, this is a good time to wash your hands or get rid of those gloves and start fresh putting everything back. Especially before I actually tighten this wheel, before I grab this Allen key, I'll take off my gloves, they're gone, hands are clean. Now I'm ready to grab my tools again. Try to keep your tools clean. It makes a big difference, especially when you're going from one condition to the next condition of the next reformer. They may not be the same, so maybe just spreading grease around. Again, the same tools I used to take them off, I'm using to put back on. Now it's time to tighten. I'm tightening all my main wheels, all the side wheels. That's all I'm doing for this next time. This next section is just tightening it all. How tight should the wheel be? The wheel is going to have some give. Another tip is if you're using these tools, be sure to really press in onto the wheel. You don't want this, I can't even produce it by mistake. I'm trying to make a mistake, I can't. There. So you don't want to like that. You don't want it to keep slipping off. What happens when it keeps slipping off is that you're damaging the screw. You're stripping the screw more and more. And it will come to a point that the tool won't even hold on to the screw anymore. And then it's gonna be really hard to take that screw off. especially for next service. Maybe you just put it on, strip it anyway, and be like, whatever, I'm done with the service. And next time you're gonna do the service, you'll find yourself with a screw you cannot take off completely. Just tighten it. One way to know how tight it should be, let me just show you. So that's too tight. I don't know if you can see, but it breaks itself. It's coming to a complete stop, the wheel. So if you're not sure how tight it should be, tighten it to where this happens, it just doesn't move, doesn't move freely, and give it half a turn or a quarter turn back. Sometimes a quarter turn does it, right? Just turn it back, and just give it a half a turn back the other way. And then it's just gonna spin freely. Can you see it spinning? Yeah. It should just keep free spinning until it comes into a complete stop, not just like an abrupt stop. And that's how you know how tight the wheel should be. Once you're done with that, there's going to be excess grease on the head of the screw and on the nut. Now you see why you want that garbage bag closed. You're going to deal with a lot of little greasy napkins and Q-tips. You just want that close. All right, so that's side wheel service, that's main wheel service. The back wheels, they're the same as the main wheels. They have the same casters, they have the same screw. If you're going to do the back wheels, it's basically what we repeated for the main wheels. Wipe off any excess grease anywhere, because that defeats the purpose of everything you just did. You don't want extra grease, that's the whole point of doing this, is that the black grease comes out, and you don't want that on people's hair, and clothes, and springs, and track. All right, quick safety check. Safety check would basically mean self-explanatory. We're checking for safety. We're checking to see what's loose, what's broken, what needs replacement. For this, you would basically just need a screwdriver and the Allen key. Same 532 will work. One of the main safety concerns that I would say is the spring bar. The spring bar itself, the one that holds the springs. Tighten those 4 Allen key screws on it. Those are very important. They hold all the weight of the springs. There's 4 springs pulling on this bar at the same time for certain exercises. But if this bar comes loose, you're gonna have springs flying across the room. It's not a good experience. And these are the screws that it has. It's just small Allen key screws. And there's 4 of them that hold this gear bar, what the springs are on. If you keep tightening the screw and it just keeps on spinning and it just doesn't want to tighten, you just spin it, it just doesn't grip. What it's composed of is these T-nuts are in the other side of the reformer under the upholstery, and the screw screws onto them, right? And these things are basically jammed into the wood with these little spikes. If for some reason this came off the other side and is just floating around the upholstery, then the screw has nothing to hold on to. And that's what's happening. It is a big job. You do have to remove the upholstery to put it back, but would you rather not do that than have springs flying all over the place or somebody jarred up because, or hurt because the spring bar just came loose in the middle of an exercise. So if it keeps spinning, it's a big safety issue. Just try to get it fixed. You can definitely contact us, contact Grots. They will guide you as to how to fix it. That's the axle screw, the Allen key screws. Those are the only things you would need the Allen key for at that point. You're done with the Allen key completely. Then you'll grab your screwdrivers. Again, I have one that I can just flip back and forth, so I don't have to keep grabbing different screwdrivers, and I'll just use whichever head is convenient. I'll use the big number 2 right now, just to tighten all the screws for the casters. So those will mean like the screws that are holding the wheels, the main wheels together. And those will come loose over time. I just want to give them a nice tight, make sure that they're all tight. Along with those screws are also the back. Once you're done with all those screws, then you have also the ones for the headrest. Those are flathead, right? I'm going to switch to the flathead side. And those are I'll use the number 2 also because those are a wider one, right? My hands are kind of greasy now. I'll just use a wide flathead, and that's to tighten these screws here for the hinge of the headrest. There's 6 of those screws on this side, but then the headrest also has that wood kickstand that we flip up and down depending on if we want the headrest up or down. And that has 6 other screws. Sometimes they have 4. There's my 6 other screws that are basically a smaller Phillips head. So the Phillips head that you use to tighten the main screw, the main wheels, is not the same one you would use for those. You will strip the screw. And again, you don't want any strip anything in here. And that will be the safety check for all the screws, nuts, and bolts on this side. To tighten the casters that hold the straps, you will need a 7/16 wrench, which is basically the same wrench we've been using. Just grab this right here. Same type of wrench, or you can use a socket wrench, of course. And it's just a different measurement, 7/16, and that will, oh, you can see it. That will tighten these screws here. There's 2 screws that hold this caster here. The metal one that has the eye hook, that has a strap on it. And you just want to make sure that those are tight. And that's a 7/16 wrench or socket wrench. That's the safety check, that's the wheel check, and you're near the end of the service of your reformer. Wipe down the wheels. I always keep a spray bottle close with some rags or some extra paper towels, and I will literally just wipe down the wheel. Let me just give you an example quickly. Again, just like when we're wiping down the equipment, we spray the rag, not the equipment, because the vinyl is porous, and you just want to protect it as much as possible. You spray the equipment, the liquid gets through the vinyl and onto the foam, and it starts messing up your foam. Just give the wheel a wipe and also dry it. Don't leave it wet. I'm sorry? Okay. All right, wiping down the wheels, wipe down all the wheels, take all your tools off, put away all your tools, all the grease. Again, I will not just be throwing these things on the floor. For the sake of time and for the sake of you, we're just running through it. Everything's off, and it's time to turn it back. To turn it back, guys, is the same concept as for turning it forward. Use the off stance position, use safety. Definitely very important to not fall in this. Again, before you turning it over, this is a good time to look at your track. You should be wiping your tracks down at least once a week. But if you're not, then this is also a good time for you to look at the track, see if there's any grease boogers there, and just like take it all off. Yes, we call them grease boogers. All right, just gonna back up one more time, show you how I turn the reformer back over. I finished the service to all the reformers. I'm not doing this just to one reformer. Once I'm done with one, chances are I'm done with all of them, and I'm turning them all back at the same time. Same ideal. Meaning that since I am done with the reformers, my hands are clean at this point. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Grab the frame of the reformer through the metal. One is under the headpiece. The other one is the bar that holds the springs up. Not the gear bar, not the spring bar, but the other bar that holds them up. Lift the reformer up. Side down, headpiece side down. Make sure that the straps are out of your way. I know I'm making it look easy, but when you're doing this all day, when you're doing this to a couple of reformers, this could get heavy, this could get dangerous. Make sure you keep the method. Take your time with this. Do not hit the frame of the carriage to the end frame of the reformer. Meaning, do not hit this metal frame to this frame. You're gonna damage the frame, so just take your time bringing it down. If you need help from someone, get someone to help you put it in. This thing is a little heavy. Don't tilt it more than 90 degrees, even when you're putting it back. Then you can just let the front fall. Right? Quickly, check underneath the carriage to make sure that the springs are hooked on properly. What I mean is sometimes they stay off a little bit, like, maybe I can show you quickly. I know we're over time, guys. I know we're over time. We're working overtime. We got a whole laptop on the reformer. Check that out. All right, perfect. So what I mean is, I don't know if you guys can see, but the spring can stay stuck like that. You don't want that. You want it to stay hanging freely. If it stays this way and you put everything back, all your springs back, start using the reformer, this has one of two choices. Either it's gonna slip and it's going to make a big sound when it snaps back into place, or worst case scenario, it's gonna break and the spring is going to fly also. Make sure that these springs are hanging loose. Main safety thing when you're done. After that, you can put the springs back. Grab the straps. Make sure your hands are clean for this part. You're about to touch your beautiful straps, which everyone tries to keep clean as long as possible. And you slide the straps behind the back wheel. Make sure it's not twisted in any way. You're going to add the handles on at the end. And the last safety check I will do before I leave is actually tighten the handles. These come loose. They are not drilled onto the wood. They screw into each other actually. There's a metal piece in between, and one of them is held on by one screw and the other one by the other one. So you'll have two Allen keys, 532, and just tighten one side into the other. You don't want no one losing their handles during rowing. Imagine what that would look like. 90 degrees, lean back, and the handle just comes off. You don't want that. Handles are back. Leather's back. Back these up. And you guys are finished. I hope you enjoyed this super fast explanation of the Gratz reformer, but it is recorded. So if you didn't get any part, just always feel free to look back over the tape or call us Pilates Pro Maintenance, so you can call Gratz. He'll probably end up calling us also, and we'll guide you through any problems you may have. Good luck, guys. Bye. Have a good holidays. Bye, Stephanie.